Hi, I'm Cassie.
And I'm Mariah.
And this is the Cassie and Mariah Show, a podcast where two long-distance internet friends, that's us, discuss navigating their 20s through disability and chronic illness. Mariah, how you doing?
Hi. I'm doing well. I've been doing my hot girl walks this week, so I feel like that really has been elevating my mood.
I was gonna say, there's a zany energy in the virtual room today.
For a few reasons. I have not indulged in any weed paraphernalia in a week, and that's really nice. I feel like my mental health has stabilized to a normal level, which is still zany and still quirky and still weird, but it's like authentic now. I had multiple doctor appointments this week. I went to my eye doctor yesterday. New doctor, new energy in the room, right? Found out my eye prescription doesn't need to be changed. So my eyes have not gotten worse in the past 4 years, which is great.
Slay.
Means that I haven't been to the eye doctor in 4 years, but I'm glad that I don't need new glasses, and my insurance covered it all. So thank you, Superior Vision, for insurance.
That is one of the biggest wins in the American healthcare system,
right?
You can ask for.
Not having to pay anything when you go to a doctor's appointment. I've been indulging in the new Boy Genius, The Record, yes, which we will touch on because we are both huge fans. And what's your favorite song? And what can you think of off the top of your head?
Here's the thing. Yesterday, so the night that it came out, because I have West Coast privilege, and so, I had that 9 p.m. I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to it while I was doing other stuff, and I feel like that's a nice, dip into a new album, and I just, never listen to new music, especially because I haven't been, riding the bus the past 3 months, so, that's when I would normally listen to music, and so I had, listened to it while I was multitasking, so I didn't, listen to it. And then yesterday I rode the train for the first time since last year, and I was like, I'm gonna listen to it, and oh boy, did I listen to it. I don't think I have a favorite yet, because especially everything, obviously, 3 of the 12 songs, 3 of the 12 songs, well, 4 of them were singles, but I never listened to Not Strong Enough because I was like, we already have 3 singles. I don't want to listen to more of the album until it's out. And so it's everything after, obviously I enjoyed the first song, but then everything after the first 3 singles on the album, I just kept, it's every song progressively, I was like, oh my God, Mariah, I was just texting me updates, because I was just like, oh my God, I'm just being destroyed on the train right now.
I feel that, and I have not stopped listening to that album since it came out. This week I literally only listened to One Direction when I was in the car, or I listened to Boy Genius. One Direction is very pleasure, I want to have fun, I don't want to think about how much my brain hates me right now, I just want to listen to Fireproof and dance a little bit in the car, sing really loud, and hopefully nobody's looking at me. But yeah, I definitely Revolution Zero is a very good song. I feel like Satanist is very good. I love that's a big fan of that.
Anti-Curse. I am obsessed with the connections back to me and my dog from Letters to an Old Poet or whatever. I was like,
yeah.
So the first time that I had listened when I wasn't really paying attention, I didn't realize that me and my dog and Letters to an Old Poet or whatever were connected. And so then I was just like, why does the melody sound similar? Are they ripping themselves off? And then I finally put it together that the songs are actually kind of connected.
And Letters to an Old Poet were really just, as they say, a punch in the stomach. I really was a huge fan. I just, each song I was like, wow, I feel like they're all their own very specific pictures they paint in your head. It's hard to choose a favorite, especially this early.
Yeah.
But I did really enjoy the film.
Oh, yes. Yeah, me too.
But other than that, I've been doing some vendor event planning, just trying to get some more markets under the belt for the next few months. I've been trying to do 3 a month at least, maybe 4 if I'm feeling fancy, but I've been enjoying that. And then I'm still on the Star Wars gauntlet over here. I just finished the 4th movie we watched, A New Hope, which was the first Star Wars movie that ever came out. Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. Mwah, that he's so adorable. And of course you have Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. Just a really fun movie in general. I very much enjoyed that. I feel like I'm becoming a Star Wars girl, and it's kind kind of unexpected twist to this year as someone who's never watched any of the Star Wars movies. But what's going on in your neck of the woods? Cassie, how you doing?
What isn't going on? I mean, I guess the other thing I forgot to mention regarding Boy Genius is that I indeed bought tickets to see them this summer because I am still only going to outdoor shows, but they're playing an outdoor show here. And by here, I mean all the way over in Bend, which is like a 2.5-hour drive. But it's like not really any different from like driving up to Seattle to see a show. It's in fact closer. So very much looking forward to that. It seems like lots of people are going. I kind of wish they were just playing the outdoor venue here, but regardless. It was spring break this week, and I was very busy though. Lots of meetings and things, but some highlights. I visited the Oregon State Capitol for the first time. I was there to give testimony on a bill just because I had never like gone in person to the Capitol. I was like, I want to take a field trip just because it's spring break. I have the time. Why not drive down to Salem, testify in person for the first time? Why not? And so I'm friends with a lot of state legislators, which I feel like is a really weird thing to say if you're not in the political world, but that is very normal in my life. And literally, it's funny that we talked about, like, internet, like, growing up on the internet and, like, internet friendships and all of that before, because literally, you know, back in the day, it was me meeting my Twitter mutuals because, like, we were fans of One Direction. Now it's me meeting my Twitter mutuals who are state legislators. So that's, you know, it was very fun, though. And, like, a bunch of my friends work for legislators and stuff. So after I gave testimony, I literally just hung out and said hi to people and stuff, and it was very fun.
So cute. Love.
And then last night, I went into Portland, and again, I'm still like just getting back out into the world for the first time really this year, and I took the Max in and got lunch with my friend, and then we went to see Michelle Zauner talk at Powell's. The way that those events work, it's like first come, first serve when they're at Powell. Sometimes they do like ticketed events elsewhere, so you don't have to worry about that. But she specifically, I think, especially I saw an Instagram reel today that she wanted her name on the Powell's marquee. Like, she wanted to be there because she's from Oregon, so like it was a big deal and stuff. And so it was very special to be there, but that meant that we literally got there 2 hours before it started and just sat there and waited. So that was a bit much. It got very toasty in there, but it was so fun. It was my first author talk like in my adult life, because in like K through 12, like they would bring in authors to like speak at assemblies or whatever, which was fun, but this was my first time actually like intentionally seeking that out. Got my book signed. Powell's has disabled people skip the line privilege, and I was like, I literally you know, I don't know what it's like to have actual like able-bodied like privilege and stuff in the world, but like I don't know, in that moment I was like, this just feels like, and it's not like I'm asking for VIP treatment in the world, but oh my god, I'm gonna take it when I get it.
Yes, of course.
So that was very satisfying, because the signing was gonna go from 7 until the store closed at 9, and I wasn't really trying to sit there for 2 hours to wait to get my book signed. So the fact that I was first in line really kind of rocked.
Incredible. I love that.
And the biggest highlight of my week is that I got a call that I was offered my #1 top choice internship that I applied for this summer.
Woo!
Thank you. I literally was so composed when I called them back, because like the message was vague, but then I had to call them back, and then they told me and stuff, but I was very composed together on the phone, and then as soon as I hung up, I just ugly cried, laughed, just hysterical, and then I sent you selfies of that, as one does, but am just so excited, so grateful. And since this doesn't come out for a few weeks, I can say that internship is with 1000 Friends of Oregon, which is just a very long time organization here that's like existed as long as our state's land use system has existed, and who I have learned so much from. I did one of their like training programs a couple years ago that literally set me on like the transportation justice advocacy path that I'm on now, and it's just so special to get to spend the summer doing like transportation policy research. I'm just so excited, and I get to work with such cool people who I like look up to and like have organized with in other capacities, and it's just, I'm so excited. And it's like, from the sounds of it, it's a competitive like internship to get, and so it's just, I don't know, it just made me so happy to have that locked down for the summer.
When you text me saying that you had a voicemail from 1000 friends, and that's all I saw from the preview, I was like, damn, Cassie's got 1000 friends. Like, what the? Let me see the LinkedIn. Like, how do you know this many people?
I did recently reach 100 connections on LinkedIn, and that felt like a big adult slay.
Nice. Love. Oh my god, but I love that for you. I'm so happy for you. That's such a great, like, achievement.
Thank you.
What a fun summer internship to get.
I'm so excited, and it's just nice to, like, not have to worry about that anymore, because I had applied to a bunch, but, like, really, like, this was, like, the number one, like, most in line with, like, what I want to do with my life, and so it was just such a relief and honor, and I'm just so grateful and excited.
So this week, we are talking about creative expression, and Cassie and I have really been through it, from like, you know, experiencing like after school activities in elementary school to going into high school, writing songs, and just starting to play different instruments that we like, writing and other crafty things like crocheting or wire wrapping and fun things like that.
And especially because, like, I feel like our relationship with creative expression has, like, looked so different at different points in our life, and I feel like looks so different now as adults, because I don't know about you, but, like, I feel like as a kid, like, it's so encouraged to, like, I don't know, it's like, oh, you finish your worksheet early, like, here, draw on the back of your paper or whatever. Like, it's like you're constantly being encouraged to, like, color and draw and, like, create, like, cool projects and things like that. And then it's like, as an adult, it's literally like, it feels like you don't even have time for that.
Right? Or, like, if you're not getting paid to do this, you shouldn't do it at all, which sucks. Because then you don't do it at all. Then you don't do it at all.
I feel like we should start with Mariah. You were dropping hints to me that a creative form of expression in your life was book reports. So how about you tell the people a little more about that?
Cracking my knuckles. Let's get into it. So all throughout my life, I have always enjoyed like reading books for school, of course, and
you say, of course, like that's normal for most kids, but yes, continue.
Right? Okay, anyway. So, and, you know, living so close to, like, craft stores and stuff, whenever I had a book report due or something, my mom and I would make it this whole, like, adventure trip thing. So, like, in elementary school, I would make really interesting, like, book report covers. And based on, like, the different books that you read, like, there was one where it was, like, where the red fern grows. You draw the, you know, the tombstones for the dogs. Spoiler alert, they die. And I would use, like, fake moss on the cover of the book report to give it that very, like, woodland, like, earthy feel, since that's where, like, the main character, like, grew up. We'd also, like, take a lighter and, like, burn some of the pages of the book report to make it look more, like, weathered. I one of the book reports I vividly remember was like when I was in high school, and it was for the book To Kill a Mockingbird. The character, you had to pick up a character and then write a whole like little synopsis on that character. So I picked Boo Radley, which is like, I guess he's one of the protagonists, but I think like antagonists, like you think that he's evil in the beginning and stuff like that, but he's not. And I don't remember what the specifics were, but the Boo Radley cover that I had was made with like fake keys, like that I got from Michael's. I got like a mixed bag of like letters to use, where like some are uppercase, lowercase, and different fonts and different textures. So I made the cover of the book report like Boo Radley, and I had his name with all these funky letters. I had the keys, and of course I would get a really nice sleeve to keep the book report in, and then you hand it in. The book reports I did were just like, I had to hit it out of the park. I was like, this is a fun thing I'm doing, so I'm gonna give it my all. In middle school, we had to make tombstones for dead like scientists and stuff. So I picked Galileo Galilei, and him being an astronomer, I used like a fake like little telescope that I painted and made look to be like a gray, black, green, like weathered look to it. And the whole tombstone I built was this 3-tier tombstone that was probably almost the same height as me when I was in 8th grade. I used like fake moss, and everything that like I used for a lot of these book reports were things we already had at home. Like I'd always get styrofoam boxes for my medications, so I always took those and repurposed them. My mom still uses that tombstone for that like report to this day as a Halloween decoration.
Oh my god.
Sure, it looks like shit and it's weathered, but it was something that I just had so much, like I put so much effort into stuff like that, and I really enjoyed it. Another thing, when I was in high school, we had this like crafts project where you have to make a clay slice of cake. And I didn't make a cake. I made a piece of cheese with a little mouse on the top. And that little mouse was just my guy, like we went through a lot together.
That's so fun. Yeah, I feel like occasionally I would like go above and beyond on a project, but I also have so many memories of like doing them the night before and just ugly gluing things onto poster boards and ugh. So like as a kid, it's like being disabled, and especially like being in like leg casts so much of the time and stuff. It's like, yes, there was like plenty of times that I was still able to just run around, play whatever as a kid, but a lot of the time I was also just like sitting around, and what is the easiest thing to do when you sit around a lot is color and draw and like painting and stuff like that. In elementary school, there was like after school art classes for most of my time there. I think it was like only allowed for like 3rd through 5th graders, because it was specifically like making clay. Like we had this lady who would like come in and teach us how to work with clay. We didn't like do like pottery, but it was just like, you would like work with clay just on the table and like make whatever you wanted, and then she would go fire it in the kiln, and then we would glaze it, and then she'd fire it again. And I had all this stuff from after school art class, and then sometimes in the summer like Parks and Rec places would have art classes. And I do remember, I feel like one year like in elementary school they brought in somebody who cost like a ton of money for after school, and it's like, really, it's like that's so like prohibitive to all these kids who are used to like not having to pay very much to participate. So it was always such a treat when that worked out. I literally feel like most of my like physical art skills in that regard, like drawing, painting, all of that, well, maybe not painting, I feel like my painting skills have evolved a little bit, but like my drawing and coloring skills, they stagnated after elementary school. They're exactly the same.
That was funny you mentioned clay. It actually literally kicked a memory in my head of like, I think it was middle school when we did clay stuff like that for art class. I made a clay pocket after the band Cobra Starship. I was obsessed with them at the time. But what I think is really interesting, like for you and I, it's like our music expression too. Like when I was in middle school, I started playing guitar, and I think most of it had to do with the fact that like my brother also was playing guitar at the time, so he would have that stuff around the house, and I was always really into music, so I was like, oh, like I want to play guitar too. But I almost feel like my brain couldn't make the connection of like using my hands and also thinking at the same time, like in that avenue. And I, played drums when I was in middle school and high school. And that was another thing of just like I feel like I just had a hard time like controlling all of my limbs at once in that way, like with the foot pedals and also like actually hitting the drums. But I know you're very into expressing yourself with music now, even with piano, as much as you say you don't play it that much.
Yeah, I mean, well, I feel like playing music's always kind of been part of my life, because when I was a kid, like my grandma paid for me to do like piano lessons. Somebody at her church played and was like, I'll teach this kid. So it's like that's where I first kind of learned to like read music and like got familiar with piano and all of that. And then in middle school, I like really wanted to do band, which I feel like to some degree I regret, but that's fine. I ended up like playing percussion, and I mostly played like the bells. That's what my teacher always called it, but there's like a much fancier, it's like, is it literally called the glockenspiel? I don't know. It's like the metal. It's like a xylophone, but metal. So it's like I did that all of middle school. I tried to do it in high school, but suddenly in high school, everybody took it very seriously. And I was like, actually, this is not fun anymore. And I quit halfway through, even though you were expected to stay the whole year. It just got very intense very fast. I was like, yeah, this was way more fun in middle school. So, and then, speaking of boy genius, I don't even know how I stumbled into writing song lyrics, but I've been writing them since like probably freshman year of high school. And at this point, I literally have over 500 notes in my phone of like complete or partially finished song lyrics that I've written. And I just never really had any intention to do anything with them or to play music or anything like that. And then I think just because of, like, getting more involved in, like, the local music scene and things like that, I started to think about it more and more. But, like, I always thought that, like, because most of the music I listened to, especially in high school, was all, like, guitar-driven. And I was like, but I always thought that I couldn't play guitar because my hands don't, like, my palms can't face the ceiling. So, like, I can't play guitar underhanded. And so I just always thought that I never would be able to. I also thought my arms were too short to play guitar because I'm like, I watch all these like big, tall, lanky, able-bodied people play. It's like you just don't see yourself represented, so you don't think you can do it. You don't know how you can do it. And so after I saw Boy Genius in 2016, I just remember texting my friends and I was like, we need to do that. We need to do what they're doing. And I think part of it is literally because of, like, the band name. Like, this concept of, like, men just be saying and doing things without thinking, without doubting themselves. So why aren't we doing the same thing? So, like, it took a minute, but there was actually a project I had for a class. I think that was my, like, freshman year of college, maybe sophomore year of college. And one of the options for the final project was to write a song. And so my friend Nova came over and she, like, knew how to do some, like, music production stuff. And so she brought over some instruments and she came over and we, like, wrote a song for my final project. But when she came over, she brought an old guitar that, like, when she first started learning to play, I think it was, so that way I could try and see, like, if it was possible for me to play. And I realized that it was, and that I could just play overhanded. Not only could I reach everything, but I could just learn to play overhanded, which it has been a bit of a learning curve in the sense that, like, that means that my first finger is my pinky, and not only is my pinky obviously my shortest finger, but then it's also, like, my weakest, and so, like, I can't play bar chords, for example, which I know a bunch of people, like, hate playing bar chords anyway, so, like, it's not like I'm, that special, but it's, it's frustrating to be limited by, like, chords where it's, like, you want to play, like, literally the main, normal, like, major chord for a note, and you just can't in the shape that it would normally be played, and so you have to look up, like, alternatives, which thankfully there are, like, a bunch of alternative ways to, like, play different chords and, like, figuring out how to make playing music accessible to me. Mm-hmm. And then over the pandemic, I got refunded for Billie Eilish tickets because I was supposed to go see her, and then obviously the show got canceled because of COVID. And I was like, I know how I'm going to spend this money, and I bought a keyboard because I don't know why. I don't remember what my thought process was at the time. I don't know if it was just because I was listening to more music that was, like, piano based, or if I was just like, I feel like playing piano would make it easier for me to learn guitar or easier to demo out song ideas, or I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah, I mean, Mariah, when you joke about me not playing very often, I mean, I have my whole crochet project that I'm making for your birthday laying on my keyboard, as well as 2 books. I did play it, like, a couple weeks ago. It was, I went right back into learning to play Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo.
And music instruments like that, you have it, so it's going to be there forever. You can teach yourself whenever you're ready and want to. I feel that way with my stylophone that I bought a few weeks ago. A stylophone is kind of like set up very similar to a piano. It has keys. It has a little speaker on it, so the music just plays directly from there. And it's very like electronic based. I know like David Bowie would play them a lot on stage. Like they're little. They're probably they're a little bit bigger than an iPhone. And I recently got one because I was watching like just some YouTube videos of just people playing different instruments, and I've always really wanted to learn piano. I actually have a keyboard that sits in my closet that I got at a yard sale. And it's very fun, but they're also like huge instruments that you really need a lot of space for.
Yeah.
So, and I don't really have a lot of space to begin with, so I was like, oh, a stylophone's a perfect thing to keep on my desk. And I learned a couple songs off of it. Like I learned Kids by MGMT, and that was like one of those things where I was like, okay, I taught myself a complete song. I guess I'm done. And then, yeah, Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis. I found it's basically like, because, you know, it's basically like you can look up the piano chords and then go from there to learn the stylophone chords. So I did that, and I found them all on like Pinterest. And I was surprised because, like, I'm part of, like, the Stylophone Reddit subreddit where people do post some songs on there. But some of them are very, like, I don't know, they post stuff from, like, video games where, like, you almost need a stylophone and then also, like, another instrument to assist in playing the song. And I was like, I'm not going to buy another thing. So I found a lot of the chords on Pinterest. And I really enjoyed that, but I just kind of fell out of doing it. I don't really know why. I guess because it's just something where I have to teach myself how to play. So, like, again, I'm just, like, trying to teach myself to do this thing, and then I was like, oh, like, I should play this, and then, like, oh, maybe I should post videos of me playing it on Twitter. But then I was like, no, because, like, once I start sharing it with other people, once I start, like, doing more things like that, I'm going to feel more obligated to play it for, like, and I don't know, it just won't be as fun for me anymore. And I guess like bringing it up on the podcast is also like that. But I definitely did enjoy. I feel like that was just a very fun instrument. I definitely want to get back into it though. Obviously, like I still have it, and they're not super expensive. So I was thinking about getting the stylophone that is like the drum pad one, because it's just like that would be like an assisting instrument, or just like a little finger. I forget what it's called, like the finger piano, where it's just like the it's like a kalimba, I believe it's called. And that's where you could play music on that. Those are very pretty. There's very nice ones on Etsy. But yeah, I mean, I just think playing instruments is just such a fun way to really express yourself. I mean, I also just really enjoy writing lyrics, like you've said before, about writing stuff in the notes app of your phone. There's so many, that's my graveyard of unfinished songs right there. Like, I did that a lot when I was younger. Like, I feel like I've always been very into writing just like little small snippets of stuff that I was like, oh, I could always add this in a song, or like write poetry, or just, and then once you get older and you learn that it's more of like a prose like writing exercise, then I feel like that's just more of the things that I like, is not really writing something that has like a rhyme scheme to it or anything like that. But I definitely love just really writing those cute, like, metaphorical, descriptive language type of fun writing exercises.
That's fun. I feel like I really liked that type of writing when I was younger, and then I really fell out of it because I feel like I'm somebody who, even though I daydream, like, 24/7. I otherwise have no imagination. Like I feel like I'm really just like descriptive writing just I was not built for it. My most memorable thing is like in second grade I wrote like Frosty the Snow Woman, which I'm like, wow, she's a feminist.
Feminist icon. Oh my god.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I just experience things and then immediately open my notes app and write about it, or somebody says something or I say something and I'm like, that could be a song, and then a lot of them just don't go anywhere. But it's like after like Nova and I like wrote that song for my school project, we just started playing around after that too, and started like playing with other songs that like she had in her notes app, I had in my notes app, and she had actually sent me, I think, one of her songs, and I ended up writing the guitar for it, which was like just like unexpected. And so we ended up actually like forming like a band of sorts, a duo of sorts, called Suris, like Tsuris. We had gone through the like dictionary.com word of the day or something, like looking back to like find things, and it means like trouble or woes or something like that. But we just thought it was the cutest little name, and ended up like, it took us a while, but we ended up like finishing and writing and recording and releasing 4 songs on an EP that are literally, it's out anywhere you can go listen to it. It's called Spinal Awakening, and it has my literal x-rays on the cover because we both have scoliosis.
Cassie's in the Midwest. I love the Midwest emo era of your life. I feel like that's like the little bit of the time like before we became friends. Because I actually have that. I think I am following Saurus on Spotify in case you ever put anything else out. But, oh my gosh, I love that you actually got to the chance to, like, put out music, you know, and, like, go through the whole process.
And we ended up finishing it, I think, like, Nova had everything already recorded. Like, she had everything. So we ended up releasing it during COVID, I think, because I edited together footage that we had recorded while we were writing and recording it, and then also just like other like b-roll like footage from a road trip or something that I went on, and like made a music video for one of the songs and like put that together. And that's like another like form of creative expression that I really enjoy, is like video editing. Like, it's something that I like hyper fixate on very easily. I just remember spending hours and hours like working on the Source music video, even though it was so unnecessary, but I just get so like hyper fixated, like hyper focused on like music video, or not music video editing, but video editing in general. And it's like, even pre-COVID, like my friends Courtney and Heather and I would like hang out like once a month, and I started like kind of making little vlogs of like our hangouts. And I say that sounds so silly to say once a month, but again, we've talked about like adult friendships and how hard that is, and so it was like a big deal at the time, and so I would make little vlogs. I think I only made 2. I think I made one when we went to to St. Helens in Oregon, which is where Halloween Town was filmed, and then one of like our Galentine's Day hangs right before COVID. And I think they're probably privated now, but it's like stuff like that is so fun to me. But yeah, like it is very cool to think about the fact that like you know, Nova and I were able to like write and release music. I feel like we've both probably grown a lot in our writing. That's the thing. It's like when you don't like regularly write and release music, or record and release music, I feel like nobody sees like your growth. And so it's just like, it feels like it's this little time capsule, which I'm sure every artist feels that way anyway, but it's just like, it's this like little time capsule of this like time in our lives where it's like, we literally had this like boy genius mentality of like, stop questioning everything. It's like, I have seen just like the average like middle-aged white dude bro like play on stage just absolutely horrendously, but people are there to see it and they love it. And I'm like, right? Why are we stopping ourselves from doing? And that's the thing, we're not doing it for anybody else, we're doing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I say all of this and then it's ironic because nowadays I like don't really let myself be creative or like spend much time playing music, which is something that I find like really frustrating actually, and I've talked about in therapy several times. And logically I know that like playing music is like something that would be, because okay, here's the thing, like for me, ever since I got involved with like climate organizing, everything feels like such like high stakes all the time. And like any way that I'm spending my time that is not in service of making the world a better place, like that it's somehow a waste of time or like self-indulgent or whatever, which is, I know that's ridiculous. I don't judge other people for not spending 24 hours a day, like trying to fix the world. I know that I need to do things that are not organizing in order to have the energy and drive to do other things. Like I have to fill like my soul back, my spirit back up. And yet it's still so hard to like let myself do things that are just for me.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody else does it. I mean, and I think it's like how you were saying before, where you're like, oh, the vlogs that you made, oh, they're so silly, they're not necessary. But it's like, no, but like you're having fun. Like you don't have to, monetize all your hobbies. Like they could be something that you could just do with your friends that's fun. And like, period, that's it.
Well, and something else that I think about all the time is it's like not only because like to me, every time that I do finally get around to like playing guitar or playing piano or whatever, it is so therapeutic to me. Like genuinely, like it makes so much sense that music therapy is a thing because playing music is so therapeutic to me. It relieves my anxiety. Like it is so like meditative to me. Like it is just the best thing, and it like truly does fill me back up so much. And the other thing too that I think about a lot is it's like obviously it's like playing music is like a good service to like my mental health, but like also it's something where it's like there aren't a lot of disabled people who play music, and there is a lack of representation, a lack of perspective, a lack of just so much in music that it's like if I do need that motivation of like it is bigger than just me or whatever, it's like there are those things, or like there's not a lot. I mean, to me, music and like politics have always had such like a connected history, and it's like music and art are inherently like political, like they always have been, always will be, and like especially nowadays you see more and more artists like Paramore, for example, like with the news or whatever on This Is Why, it's like more and more artists are like writing songs about the state of the world, but not a lot of people who are like actively organizing to change the world and fix the world are writing songs. And so it's like I don't always relate necessarily to the ones that are written by people who aren't. Like, no offense. Like, no offense, but like I don't necessarily relate to I mean, sometimes I do relate to the whole powerlessness feeling, but like for the most part, it's like, no, it just feels like you're constantly screaming at a brick wall to make the world a better place or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, I feel like I have a unique perspective that I bring in my songwriting. I also just like write about stuff that plenty of other artists write about. But at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my God, I have over 500 notes in my phone, and I'm seriously not gonna like do myself the service of ever bringing any of that to light. Like, really? Like, no, like I want to. I don't know how to make it a priority.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that when it comes to like my writing that I do. I'm like, I would love to put this out there in the world, but I also am like, it's very self-serving. So I'm like, is this even worth it to do? Like, and especially as someone who like runs a small business where I'm like, I always feel like the things that I post on my business Instagram, Rise Crystal Studio, has to be crystal related, has to be like a very like spiritual vein of things. Even though like when I was posting about my creative writing classes, people were like, oh my God, please share your writing on here. I'm like, yeah, but if I share anything that's not related to crystals, y'all unfollow me. So what do you want me like? What I'm trying to. It's like I'd love to post more things, but I feel like a lot of the times is that people don't want to see that. And I know it comes from the end of the day of just being like, you have to post the things you're confident in, but also at the same time, like the running a business, it's like you want to kind of keep people's attention all the time.
I totally get that, because I feel like when we were starting the podcast, I was like, wow, I don't know if people care about this thing that I'm doing that's not climate organizing. And of course they, like, not only did they, like, people were overly enthusiastic about it beyond my wildest, like, imagination. And it's just like, oh, I forgot that I can be a full person. It's like we let the internet and almost this idea of, like, branding ourselves, like, box us in.
Yeah, exactly. Really, it's like branding ourselves. Because, like, I felt like, the more I shared about my personal life on my business account, I feel like the more people actually know who I am rather than just some person who makes jewelry and sells it. Like, I want people to know, like, the journey that I've been on and going on. So when I feel like when I post about some podcast stuff on there, I'm like, oh, like, I feel like it's very, like, yeah, like, very self-serving, very, like, oh, look at me, I'm just doing this something else. Even though, like, I doubt anybody has this expectation of like, oh, you're posting, it should only be for your business. Like, no, I haven't updated my website in so long. I haven't done anything for my business in so long because I am doing this now. And I feel like that's where I really started with like I wish that like I wish I could take my Instagram to another level of like wanting to make like, I really wanted to make like Pinterest boards and like very like mood boards and stuff for like different collections that I release. Like I think that that is an amazing creative expression when people do that like type of stuff. It's also just another one of those things of like, do I have the energy to even like put effort into this? I don't know. And I do think the springtime and that rebirth of it all is definitely kicking some fire back into me, because I'm like, you know, if I only work on the things that I'm truly passionate about, then yeah, I could totally make mood boards for stuff and color schemes and all this, like, because that's what I started with when I started posting Mariah's Crystal Studio. I mostly just stuck to color schemes where I'm like, oh, like I really like the idea of doing like greens, browns, like white and black, so I'm gonna pick crystals that have that. And I feel like I always had the best success when I did like a very creative, like inspired by the seasons collection.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to get back into it. I just also am like, damn, what about like laying in my bed and staring at the ceiling fan? Like, you know, when are we going to have time to do that?
I feel like too, because like as a kid, like creative expression came so easily that
True.
now like as an adult, because we're balancing all these other things, like it just takes more energy, it takes more effort. And I think too, like with ADHD, if something takes effort to start, so like the fact that like my piano is buried under a bunch of shit right now, why would I play it? And so I actually have it on like my like project goals list for myself to like literally just clean it off and keep it cleaned off, so that way if I want to play it, the barrier to entry is not high, because I'm bad at starting things. I'm fine once I get going, but it's so hard for me to start things. Or like you know, my guitar, like it sits like just over there in my room, but like it feels like I have to be in a special mood or have like the special amount of energy, or I don't know. And it's like,
yeah.
The other thing too is like at some point, I think probably during COVID, I got out of the rhythm of writing lyrics, and I have never gotten fully back into it. In this, like I used to write, the reason there's over 500 notes is because I used to write like basically every day. I mean, like several times a week for years, and I have completely fallen out of that. And like I don't think I've written a full song in like over a year at this point. And it's like, it's just because I don't know, I feel like with creativity, I'm like, as soon as I lose that rhythm, I'm like, it feels like I have to start over from scratch or something.
Yeah, because I mean that's how I felt with my creative writing class and like trying to write every day. Because, yeah, once you stop and you have to start all over again, it's like, okay, well, now I don't want to do it. Like, it's like you really do, like, fall out of it. Because, like, for the month of January, I wrote almost every single day. I would get up in the morning, and while I did my treatments, I would write pages in my journal. And whether it be things that I just wanted to get out of my head, a little bit of, like, creative expression, or whatnot, you just fall out of it. And, like, nowadays, I feel like, you know, a few months later, like, I, you know, really wasn't into my creative writing class as much as I used to be. And I guess it's also just because of, again, just like not having the energy to do it, not having the passion to really jump back into writing. But what I do enjoy is my performance art on twitter.com. And if you don't follow me, it's a real hoot. Sassafratsuits8, throwing the plug out there. I've always enjoyed being weird online. It just really is the good vibe for me. I mean, I just like to really, you know, open my brain and show the world the insides. And I love tweeting weird things. And I always just like, I don't know, I made a joke about how fraternal twins are like, yo, insinuating that the womb is a frat. And do you have a keg in there? Can I come over? Like,
I saw that this morning, and the thing is, I feel like I forget to like your tweets because I'm so busy taking them in. It's like, instead of giving you a standing ovation, I simply sit there stunned. I feel like you should have like at least 10,000 followers.
Well, you know what I think the problem is like, I've been on Twitter for like 12 years. I have rotted my brain on that website. There's a hole in my head because of it. And I think like channeling all of my creative energy into a website like that gives nothing back to people is really sad. Because like TikTok, in a way, you gain followers on there, then you start getting like people want ads from you and they want this from you. You monetize that stuff. Twitter never really was a website to do stuff like that on, where like Instagram, kind of, because, you know, you can always do ads on there, but, like, people would never pay for an ad on Twitter.
Especially now.
Exactly. Especially now as that website is crumbling and slipping between our fingertips. But I just really enjoy making weird tweets and people then telling me, like, oh my God, you're hilarious. And I'm like, thank you. Keep feeding the ego, because it's only growing stronger. I, like, always just, I'm like, my drafts, I probably have 100 tweets in my drafts. Shit. Because I always, well, because I come up with things.
Release the drafts. Release the drafts.
Let me see. Let me find one right now, and I'll read it to everybody.
Oh my God, we're getting a Mariah exclusive draft right now.
I have one that says, YouTube keeps giving me Bumble ads, but I want ads for swords. So real. I have, this is a Star Wars tweet. Anakin's hatred keeps him alive. He's just like me.
I don't even watch Star Wars, and that's funny.
You get it. Then I have developing a crush and then giving myself the ick immediately after is a D1 sport and I will never fall in love.
So, I'm sorry. So your text to me today was a ripoff of your own tweet draft? Here I was thinking you were coming up with original content for me.
It was original content, but I also do think that using D1 sport and things that are non-athletic related are really funny.
Is that a trend, or did you come up with the D1 sport thing?
I don't know. I'd like to think I came up with it, but I also,
you just claim it.
I am claiming it. I am not an object of desire. I'm a weapon of destruction, which that's a good one.
Okay, you definitely need to tweet these. The sword, can you tweet the sword one, like, right now?
Let's do it. In real time, let's do this one. I have one tweet that says, it says, why don't men dress like this anymore? And it's a quote tweet of the One Direction music video. Gosh, which music video is this? Doesn't let me see it. But it's one that somebody tweeted before where they're on top of the bus and they're singing and they got their little chino pants on and they're all dressed up in suits and stuff. Let's see. Well, let's do one more. I have Dollar Tree employees are the best, and right after that, capitalism rots your brain for real. Which that could be a haiku. I can work on that a little bit. A banana's skin feels thicker than a human skin, and that drives me insane. Oh. And that is, that's the...
On that horrifying note, sassafrasroots8 on twitter.com.
Please follow me if you have a strong stomach, because as much as I also like being a writer, I like very graphic, like, because I always like to read horror. I like to read horror books, right? So, like, I feel like a lot of the things that I come up with, like the descriptive language that I like to use, is very in the vein of, like, wanting to use things that almost, like, the way that I explain stories can be very gross and graphic. I think, too, this is also a whole other thing of, like, being a chronically ill child and having to experience a lot of, like, very gross things about your body very early on. From having, like, surgeries when I was awake to, like, having, like, PICC lines that get pulled out of your body and you see the blood and stuff. And I always felt like I always ended up having that as an interest for me because of the fact that I was around so much medical stuff. And so much of that, like, so much of those experiences really shaped who I am as a person because of just, like, having to live with your mortality as a child and being like, damn, everybody else gets a future, but I don't. That's
such an interesting point in, like, how that's influenced you creatively.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I definitely, it's something where when I write stuff and when I think of things, I'm like, oh, like, this almost seems too graphic for a normal person because they're not used to experiencing, like, they're not used to seeing the inside of their body, you know? Whereas, like, when you're a child and, like, when I had my port place and everything and seeing, like, the stitches in my skin and stuff, I'm like, oh, wow, it's fascinating to me because it's kind of like all I knew. And I feel like I really, I have a strong stomach when it comes to that stuff, but I don't have a strong stomach when it comes to worms. So, though, that's a callback from last episode. But anyway, I feel like that's my creative journey. That's my vibes.
I love it. I love it.
So, in our last segment of the show, which really is our segment because we only do like two, we're going to share some of our personal writing that we have done. I feel like for both of us, this is things that we wrote pretty recent, within the last year or so. So they're very fresh. Cassie, if you would like to go first with the song that you wrote.
Yes. That's so funny that you consider within the past year fresh, because I'm like, oh, this was so buried in my phone notes because I've written so much on like I said, a lot of just constantly like jotting things down, but yeah, this I'm gonna read it as a poem because I am not, again, most of this hasn't been turned into songs yet, and I also forget how to play this one. But it's called the ODOT song, and I wrote it when like the Sunrise Youth First ODOT campaign was at its peak, and I was just really frustrated because it was the middle of summer and we're basically begging for a livable future, and like people in positions of power just didn't care. And so then I just also want to give credit. One of the lines in the song, which is "Does it weigh on you at all?" is a call back to a song that we sing at protests sometimes. I am not remembering in this moment where it's originally from, but that is where that is. Like, it is not an original line. It is specifically a callback to a song that we sing at protests. So anyway, now I'm going to read it. It's 75 and trying to rain. I miss when summers used to be this way. Fingers covered in blackberry stains. Gotta pick them all before the next heat wave. What were you doing when our cities were burning and smoke filled up the sky? Where were you when the heat wave came and all those people died? We can't maintain the status quo. We moved past that so long ago. Does it weigh on you at all? Are you even listening? What goes through your head with these things? How do you live with yourself? You know the truth, but do nothing to help. So what are we wearing to the end of the world? When the city's on fire, I at least want to be a cool girl. I'll always worry about trivial things, despite any existential threats we face, but sometimes it feels like I'm worried about too much, and I don't think that you're worried enough. Does it weigh on you at all?
Love.
Thank you.
The blackberries finger stains one is so interesting because it's really like it encapsulates like a very like childhood essence to it, where like you wish that you can go back to days where all you wanted to do during the summer was pick fruit outside, and now you have to literally fight for these people to even listen to you.
Yeah, and it's like literally I think I literally wrote it after picking blackberries and like being really annoyed that it was like, oh, it's gonna be 110 next week. We have to make sure that we go pick the rest of them before they literally shrivel up, die.
Yeah. Oh my God. But as much as it sucks to have to be in a position where like that's where your thoughts go, I do think that that's a very beautiful poem.
Thank you.
And I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And it sucks that, that's what your creative expression has turned into almost, because it's like obviously you would love to write about things that are more, I guess it is really, this affects you personally, so it's not even like that.
No, I get what you mean, though. Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Like, I wish you didn't have to write about this stuff, but I'm glad that you do.
Well, and that's why it's like, I don't get why I act like me writing music is self-indulgent when it's about stuff like that.
You're so right, yeah.
So I actually just pulled up the history of the song that I pulled the "Does It Weigh on You at All" line from, and because the song's called "Which Side Are You On?" I don't know, because I know that Sunrise adapted it. So basically it's like, it's a song that's been like used a lot in worker like union organizing and like strikes and stuff like that, and like it also during like the civil rights movement and stuff. So I just wanted to like acknowledge that history, and that it's been like used also a lot in more like recent movements too, in terms of like Black Lives Matter and things like that. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. I don't know enough about the history to know if the "Does It Weigh on You at All" line was by Sunrise, or if it was part of one of the other versions, but I just wanted to pay tribute to that history and acknowledging my borrowing of it. I just want to like respect the history and just like acknowledge that I know that it has a long history and isn't just a silly little song we sing at protests, you know?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I'm very excited to hear yours.
So mine was for a discussion post for my creative writing class from earlier this year. So it was kind of to write a character description. I've always kind of had this idea of like wanting to write a fantasy/horror novel about like my life and just dealing with like, I guess the thoughts of like being a chronically ill person that never had a cure for their disease and probably never will, and living your life with that and living with that. Because like, you know, cystic fibrosis was always considered a childhood disease, and as an adult living with a childhood disease, it's a very like odd feeling of being like, damn, I like shouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
You know? So this is what I wrote for the character description. Although, like, I feel like this character, in my head, it's supposed to be me, but, like, I don't entirely think of her as me. I also reference, like, a voice in your head, and the voice in your head is, like, your chronic illness wanting you to, like, do what it says, and you're fighting against it, but also, like, making sure you're not burning yourself out and wearing yourself out in the process. So here's what I have. Today I slowly creeped out of bed like there was a sleeping bear next to me. I was trying to not cause a stir, but as my last full day in the village, I wanted to go for a stroll and trying to create as many memories as I could. Where should I go first? I will visit the garden. The peonies my mother planted should have bloomed by now. As I was standing before my bed, I saw the reflection in my window. My brown hair was draped over my shoulders like dead willow tree branches, wishing to connect with the earth. My pale translucent skin stretched over my bones like it was a size too small for my body. I turned my head a bit, and I saw that the hollows of my cheeks would make a perfect nesting spot for a family of rabbits. I began to wonder what I would look like after the expulsion. Would life be pumped into my body like a deep breath of fresh air? Before I could daydream any further, I felt a hot, searing pain in the base of my skull, like a portal to the underworld opened. She was awake. "Where are we going?" she asked me as I felt her fill my small frame with a familiar fog. "Taking a stroll. I want to see the garden." As soon as I said that, she drifted away, uninterested in my day plans. But the fog remained, and I needed to sit down before I was one with the bedroom floor. I wonder if she knew about the expulsion expedition. I mean, she hasn't said anything yet. Her lack of concern has always made me wonder what causes her to be active. When I'm having a good day, I don't feel her at all, like when the sun sleeps at night. It's been 23 years of having to cohabit a body with her, and I still wonder who came first.
Oh, I love it so
Hits.
much. I need the full book now. Like, the first time you sent that, like, an audio message of you reading that to me, I was like, I need the book now. I need the audiobook now, read by you right now. And you are such a wonderful descriptive writer, and
Thank you.
it's just, I love it so much. And I love, like, the way that you describe things, like, that's connected, like, like, using, like, the natural elements, like, it's, like, the types of description, you're not just willy-nilly making, like, metaphors and stuff, like, or whatever parts of it's been a minute, but you know, like, the way that you're describing things, it's, like, it's contributing to, like, setting the, like, atmosphere and, like, aesthetic and, like, setting of the whole book, you know? I say the whole book as if this is a book, but yeah, I mean, it should be, but yes.
I mean, I definitely, like, did research while looking up, like, oh, like, if the character is leaving for her trip in the spring, like, the flowers that will be blooming during around that time. And, like, I know late spring, that's when peonies bloom. And I also know because, like, my mom planted peonies when I was younger outside, and they bloom every year on my birthday. So that was, like, the nod of that. And then also this, like, idea of, like, if this book is, like, taking place during, like, pre-electronics, pre-technology era, like, you know, using certain metaphors that align with that time.
Yeah.
And also the idea of, like, living in a village instead of living in a city. And, like, I have other parts of the book that I have written out. I say book in a very loose term. Just different, like, experiences and, I don't know. I would always keep... I still like to write stuff every now and then, but I don't think that it's something that I am ready to share every piece with, you know? But I do think, it'd be one of the things that, like, before I die, I would like to publish a book in some way, whether it be this story or just something else. Like, I've always liked the idea of writing a memoir, but I'm just not notable enough. So that's kind of where this came from.
Oh my God, that reminds me. I thought of the idea for my future non-existent memoir, because I don't know if I write down ideas for a future book, but the idea of writing it sounds horrible to me. From concerts to the Capitol. If I was like really going for it, I would add : the places I get recognized from Twitter.com. Because literally I am so used to being recognized from like Twitter or whatever at concerts, but not at the Capitol by like there was a bunch of random people who were just like, oh yeah, you're Cassie from Twitter, and I was like, apparently I am.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's a good point though about like, yeah, like kind of like deciding what you want to hold close, like still versus share. And like I think in general it's so hard to like share stuff, and like especially like even me just like reading this song, I'm just like, oh my God, like, because it feels weird to read it as poetry because it's like that's not necessarily how it's intended to be delivered, but like I'm just also like, literally, this is all just sitting in my phone. It's doing nothing. So who cares? Whatever.
Yeah, right. I feel that way too. I'm like, oh, this is literally just sitting in a notebook. It's sitting in a discussion post for a now defunct class. Like, I want to share it. And it's always good. I feel like it's always just really fun to share writing and things like that. And I hope that, we do more segments like this in the future where we can, like, actually share the things that we wrote. But it is a very vulnerable thing.
Especially because, like, for me, I feel like a lot of my writing, even the songs that I still love but I wrote years ago, they feel so childish only because I wrote them, like, when I was in high school.
True.
But it's, like, I still think there's so much value in, like, giving those songs the life they deserve someday.
Yeah, I like that. Well, that's a wrap on this week's episode. Be sure to follow the Cassie and Mariah Show wherever you listen to podcasts, at TCMS Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and look out for new episodes every Wednesday.
Bye! Oh my God, that was a good harmony.